The silver price has gone up today, but that isn't going to be our main emphasis since something far more significant is happening. Even though Trump imposed a charge on copper imports last week, the metal's price remained flat. In fact, it bombed. Copper experienced its largest one-day decline in price in over 4 decades. Is silver on the way now? According to one bullion clearer, these shocks in copper would likely affect allied assets, such as silver. Is it possible that this may occur? So, let's go right in. Visit SD Bullion's online store to purchase precious metals. Visit sdbullion.com/new to purchase gold or silver instantly. It means the world to me that you tuned in. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Because it seems paradoxical, I'd like to explain why the price of copper dropped before we get into whether or not the same thing might happen to silver. As you can see, copper's price dropped more than 20% in just 5 days. However, much of it transpired following Trump's announcement of that tariff. This article correctly explains why Trump's 50% tariff order has caused copper prices to decrease. Supposedly, the news that the tariffs will not be implemented as far as anticipated caused a 20% decline in copper prices on Wednesday afternoon. Copper scrap and other copper input materials will not be accepted. So I'd want to show you what happened when Trump initially proposed the tariffs on copper by referring to the price chart. Price points ranged from $5.03 to $5.69 per pound on July 8th. They were anticipating a levy on all copper items, including scrap, but this was actually the biggest one-day increase in copper that they had ever seen. However, I will demonstrate what the tariffs truly covered when they were introduced. Beginning August 1st, the proclamation imposes tariffs of 50% on all semi-finished copper products and copper-intensive derivative items, including pipe fittings, cables, connectors, and electrical components. Semi-finished copper products include copper pipes, wires, rods, sheets, and tubes. Even though this tax went into force today, copper scrap is exempt because its value was already factored into the copper price increase. After realizing the tariff wouldn't be as devastating as anticipated, the markets let out a collective sigh of relief, causing prices to plummet. Does silver have a chance of experiencing anything similar? According to this news, the gains for silver price in July are reduced to 0.7% because of Trump's recent copper shock. Natalie Scott-Gray, a senior metals analyst at brokerage StoneX, has predicted a huge market surprise. Now that there is an excess on the market, attention will shift to the global fundamentals of copper. A trade letter from ICBC Standard, a Chinese-owned bank and London bullion clearing, states that these shocks from copper will likely affect associated assets, such as silver. The fact that Trump's trade duties were initially waived for gold and silver bullion bars is, however, brought up. On the other hand, I have something crucial to show you regarding this. On Liberation Day, the tariff announcement was made and bullion is mentioned as an exemption. This is what I'll show you. There are certain commodities that will be exempt from the reciprocal tariff. Among these, the fifth item is bullion, which is located below. However, we may see number 3, copper, if we climb a bit. The 10% tariff applied to all nations initially, with copper being an exception. However, a distinct area is currently being reserved for copper. Bullion may be the next target if they are systematically eliminating options. There is a list of items that were initially exempt from the tariffs on this page. Copper is one of them. Now we know it's no longer exempt. Precious metals are listed farther down the page. Does this mean that precious metals will not acquire their own tariff at some point? If they do, will there be a significant drop similar to what happened with copper? A great many things come into play. Additionally, there are several key differences between copper and silver. In contrast to gold, which is mostly used as an investment metal, silver has a more practical use in industry. Check out the 2024 silver demand breakdown. 5% silverware, 17% jewelry, and 20% bars of actual investment coins. 3% will go into photography and 55% to other uses, leaving the rest for stackers like us. Here we see the commercial aspect of silver, things like medicine, solar panels, and electrical cables. Since silver's industrial side is significantly smaller than copper's, I don't believe a tariff would have as big of an effect on the metal. Plus, you can't ignore the fact that copper had its largest trading day ever due to their misunderstanding of the tariff. Naturally, there was also the decline. Perhaps the market would be less volatile if the details of a levy on silver were more clearly defined. This is what they say when we return to the article that explains the real decline in copper prices. A 50% tariff on certain imported copper was declared by President Trump on Wednesday. In a normal market, prices would rise, not fall. Typically, prices would rise upon tariff announcements, but this time around, things were different due to the pre-announcement confusion. The decline, they add, may have been an exaggeration in response to the tariff announcement. From where it is currently, I believe copper may be able to recover. Additionally, they claim that copper is already at an oversold price and that volatility may continue to decline. Following this reasoning, I believe the recent precipitous decline in copper prices is likely to be temporary. In the short term, and if we compare the S&P 500's gains to those of gold, silver, and copper, copper has outperformed the stock market so far this year, increasing by more than 10% despite that huge decline. Before that, it had been the most successful. Gold, however, has emerged as the clear victor, with prices increasing by more than 29% and silver by almost 28% year to date. But suppose for the sake of argument that silver really did fall 20%. Multiplying the current price of $37.52 by 0.8, one obtains silver worth more than $30. Consequently, a 20% decline in silver prices would not ruin silver's year-end performance. However, in my honest opinion, the imposition of a tariff on silver would cause its price to rise, similar to the situation with copper. At first, the price would almost surely increase. However, the United States is not likely to put tariffs on precious metals due to the lack of motivation to do so. A similar lack of precedent exists. There is no sign that Trump will impose tariffs on precious metals, as he did not do so even during his first time in office. Thus, it is likely that precious metals will not be subject to tariffs, at least for the time being. I don't think silver will have a significant decline similar to copper's, as a result of tariffs for the reasons I stated earlier. Silver, in my opinion, is mostly risk-free. However, we can only speculate about what the future may bring. Leave a comment below if you have any ideas about whether silver will be subject to tariffs. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch, and I'll see you in my future video. Leave the silver dragons alone.